You know, he's certainly coming out very strongly in terms of his rhetoric and pushing back against this. And like I said, I think that letter is significant because it probably is step one before he officially files suit to try to get a court to strike this down.
Yeah, so we'll see. I mean, I think a lot of it is, it's interesting even also in terms of the way that they're responding because, it's, like I said, I mean, this is part of where I do see Democratic leaders acting very differently. They're like, hey, we have all the resources to handle this, right? They're like, we are ready to roll. And again, I mean, look, you can call Karen Bass woke and all. I mean, think she has actually been a terrible mayor when we were talking about the LA fires. But in this case, I mean, I have not yet seen evidence or anything like that she's like telling the LAPD to stand down or not to enforce the law. I mean, we don't want to downplay it. You shouldn't be, people throwing rocks at federal agents. It's like not normal. It's not good. And so that's something that is going to be happening. It's going to, of course, invite a response. But yeah, broadly, this is a clash of big political forces. And, you know, we should contextualize it certainly, you know, in terms of the situation, which people are hyper-focused on that, and then also in the broader picture, like you're saying, about what this really means, what with the Trump administration, its view of power. I do think it's very interesting they didn't do the Insurrection Act. And, I mean, there's a couple of things that we can look to and say that the Trump administration, within their view, is trying to appear more reasonable, like this time around. This may sound crazy to somebody like you, but think about it. I mean, look, National Guard is not, 2000 National Guard is not the Insurrection Act. It's not, you know, we're threatening all of these things. We got later on in the show, Kilmar Abrigo Garcia is back in the United States. I mean, I don't think anybody would have said that was going to happen 20 days ago. Whenever I went on leave, what did we all say? It's never going to happen. I think, don't we have tape of Kirstie Noem? She's like,
exactly
it's not going to. They buckled, right? Like eventually they did buckle to the court. They're taking L after L right now at the Supreme Court, you know, with or in the court system as well. Like they have got, they're on the back foot a little bit, and they're not stupid either to see also, which we're about to talk about, with Doge and with Elon. That cost them a lot of political capital. Between Doge and tariffs, they have serious problems. Now, I'm not going to downplay, you know, what the future and all of this will look like. But, you know, in a sense, like I can see that there is a calibration within their worldview for what is happening right now. And while, yes, there's testing of the waters and things, I think that people are also, there are people in the White House and all of that, there's a tug, you know, of war between the Stephen Miller and then also between people who are looking, you know, at the future for the midterms. Let's not forget, we don't have it on the show, this tax bill is about to pass. No matter what you think of the tax bill, I mean, anytime you give, permanent tax cuts to the wealthiest people in the United States, because effectively what they're doing is enshrining the current law into law, as well as a bunch of other stuff. That never polls very popularly, and that's a huge benefit. We still don't know if Medicaid or whatever is on the table, but you know, there's a precarious political landscape in the next 1 to 2 years that I see for them.
Let me just put this last piece up on the screen. This is A8B, Trump's, I think this is his most recent truth. I don't know, I'm not sure, but one of his more recent truths. This is his latest thoughts. He says, a once great American city, LA, has been invaded and occupied by illegal aliens and criminals. Now violent insurrectionist mobs are swarming and attacking our federal agents to try and stop our deportation operations. These lawless riots only strengthen our resolve. I'm directing Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, Attorney General Pam Bondi, in coordination with all other relevant departments and agencies to take all such action necessary to liberate Los Angeles from the migrant invasion and put an end to these migrant riots. That's another thing, is they're trying to project like the people participating here are all immigrants or undocumented, and there's just no proof. I mean, I think the vast majority are very likely American citizens in any case.
You think so? I actually don't. I mean, LA is... I
mean, LA has a massive immigrant population, but also a massive, you know, like people who were immigrants and are now citizens population.
There's no way, no.
Yeah, I mean, but that's what...
I mean, it's also, you know, what, the second largest city in the United States of America?
Right.
I think. So,
I mean,
it probably does have a very large illegal population, like, let's be honest.
Sure.
I don't know. Again, we have no census data.
I think it's unlikely, frankly, because most people who are undocumented are very leery of doing much of anything right now because they're afraid of being picked up and deported. So the risk is much higher. Listen, we have no numbers, but that's what they want to project, is that this is all like undocumented immigrants and it's an invasion of LA, and that's why they're seizing on the Mexican, display of the Mexican flag.
I mean, they're not seizing on it. It's a Mexican flag. Like, there's Mexican flags all over it.
Again,
like, it's everywhere. It's a problem.
But there are also American flags, but you don't see those being highlighted.
I don't see very many of them. I was looking for some images. No, I
that's
know.
what
Come
they
on.
want to put forward.
Come on, we got plenty of images here. I didn't see any.
To be
Mexican
honest with you,
flags.
I actually watched a clip that Elon
Yeah.
retweeted that
Oh, really?
showcased a bunch of
All right,
American flags.
I
So
see a lot
they're
more
out there.
Mexican
But
flags.
they don't.
And no people are illegal on stolen. I mean,
But
look,
that's the
this
thing
is
is, like-
typical leftist fare. It's fine. I'm not gonna sit here and like cat turd it up or whatever. But like, let's be honest about who we're dealing with here. Like,
Sure. But like I was saying, I think there's also an element of this where Trump's rhetoric on immigration this time, although there was, some talk about like, oh, they're taking your housing, you're taking your jobs. It was more about they're emptying the insane asylums and these are all criminals and we're going to go after these criminals and deport them. And there simply aren't that many undocumented immigrants who are criminals. And so I think part of this as well is since you have this increasing sort of realization of who is actually being targeted, who is actually being deported, and there tend to be more sympathetic figures and people who are just like here trying to, live a life and work and get a job and whatever. This can substitute in for portraying that level of like criminality and lawlessness, I think is part of the reason why they're making this affirmative effort to project that everyone participating is an undocumented immigrant, which is like definitely not the case. So in any case, I think that's part of the narrative that they are trying to spin here as well.
oh yeah,
And to your point,
and it helps.
and like
when you burn cars and you have Mexican flags.
absolutely agree
Yeah.
that when you have, like I said before, the image of a burning Waymo with a Mexican flag is so perfect for them that I have to ask, it like seems way too on the nose. So in any case, that's,
you got to remember too. Most of the country has never been to Los Angeles.
Right.
If you live in a red state, like you think San Francisco is just like riddled with shit because it's like the Tenderloin district,
Right.
or you think. And look, I'm not downplaying that because it is terrible. I've been there. I've seen it. It's awful. Or downtown LA, like seeing this. What I forget exactly what it's called. I'm completely blanking on it. That area of
Skid Row?
downtown Skid Row. That is one of the worst things I've ever seen in my whole life. Ever seen. I'm talking about the slums of Mumbai are comparable to the Skid Row. It is horrific. So I don't want to downplay that. There is a tendency, though, in the middle America and others, to think that that's what it all looks like, or Chicago is
Sure.
all like, Chirac or whatever. But Mexican flags burning in the middle, they don't know. So when you see images of the 405 in LA being blocked up, in Alabama, in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, and all this, I can guarantee you, these things are going viral all across the country. I mean, look, we could debate forever about illegal immigration and deportation. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're here illegally, you are liable to be deported. Whether you should be or not, we can argue that all day long. But as the law currently stands, and as the law that's about to, I think, probably going to go into effect, like that's something that is going to be happening. Again, we can debate morality, etc., of all of that. But at the end of the day, having people throw things at federal agents, Mexican flags, and all of that, these are sympathetic images for the Trump administration. In fact, I mean, it almost makes me question why they started with these Mahmoud Khalils, and I'm blanking on the guy's name, the Buddhist guy. Yeah, I mean, these are like 10 times more sympathetic figures. Like, why did they start with the pro-Palestinian movement in a certain sense? I mean, we could probably talk forever about that, but it's interesting.
Let me make one more point, and then we can talk about Elon with us, which actually there's a tie-in too, because Elon is like, seizing on this to kind of like, smooth over some of his ruptured ties with MAGA. But in any case, I think what I was talking to Kyle about this last night, and he was saying like they were gonna, like, it doesn't matter whether the protests are peaceful or not peaceful or whatever, they were gonna do this sort of thing anyway. And I think there's a reasonable point to be made about that, because the pro-Palestine protests, the thing about the pro-Palestine protests though, they were they really were sort of a model movement, including really highlighting Jewish voices at the center of it, peaceful. Like the most aggressive thing they did was to take over that one building on the Columbia campus, which, you can debate and dispute, but that is sort of grounded in typical, like, anti-war protest movement tactics. And they were really, really disciplined. And, anytime you have a movement, a large movement of people, you're going to have some people who do some things that are like, some graffiti or something that you don't. But considering the number of people and the extent of locations and all of that, they were really disciplined. And there was a significant crackdown Now, the National Guard wasn't called in, but there was a significant crackdown, and there has been an aggressive, over-the-top federal government response, right, including pulling all the, ability of Harvard to have foreign students at all, and taking over Middle Eastern studies departments, and arresting people like Mahmoud Khalil, and arresting Mohsen Mandawi, and arresting Nisa Ozturk for writing an op-ed, and really punishing anyone who would dissent from that narrative. So in a sense, would they have called in the National Guard? Would it be exactly the same? Hard to say, but there is a top-down crackdown on dissent, regardless of how good or perfect your protest movement is. That is certainly the case. But I think what you're pointing to, well, what I will say for myself, is that it also matters how the public receives that protest movement. And so, in the case of the pro-Palestine movement, even though it hasn't moved our elected officials because they're genocidal, horrific maniacs, whether you're talking about Biden or you're talking about Trump, the way public opinion has moved has been extraordinary. The only old Republicans basically are now more pro-Israel than pro-Palestine, and that is a wild shift. I think another successful protest model in Trump 2.0 era has been, you mentioned Kilmar Abrego Garcia. There were protests, there were peaceful protests, there was, a significant effort of calling and writing members of Congress. There were people showing up at these town halls to yell at them, and, massive upset. You had Democratic politicians respond by actually going to El Salvador, keeping the pressure on the issue. You had the courts responding as well. So you had all of these layers. And because of that, when you poll on Kilmar Abrego Garcia specifically, it is one of Trump's worst polling issues. People are disgusted with how he handled it. And the more that was in the news, the more that the pressure was kept on and that was kept in the news, the more that Trump's overall approval on immigration fell. And so now, actually, his approval rating on immigration has recovered a bit. His overall approval has recovered a bit as that has become, more back burner in terms of the news and hasn't been in everyone's face. So there are models of, movements that have used successful tactics that have really swayed public opinion and have moved people to their side, and have even successfully, in some ways, when we talk about Kilmar, checked some of the ambitions of the Trump administration. So I do think, I know people get pissed off when you why are you nitpicking the tactics? But look, this is not a game. This is very serious. These are wannabe fascists, and he is an authoritarian who wants to use whatever pretext he can to crack down and to crush dissent and to spin, to create images and spin a narrative and tell a story that plays into his hands. And so, I think it's really important to be smart and strategic and not give him what he wants to provide a more effective pretext.
Well, they're never going to listen to me. So for all the protest leaders,
they're not going to listen.
From Chris.
Yeah.
No, I think they would listen to you, actually. They probably hate me, but that's fine. I love you guys too. It's okay. All right, let's go on to Elon.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.
At the same time, an extraordinary fallout between Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Crystal and the team have already covered much of that, but we do have some new developments, mostly within the MAGA movement, who are really turning on Elon Musk. Steve Bannon, who of course has been gunning for Musk from day one, really seizing the opportunity to drive the point home that he's an interloper, he's a big tech oligarch, and now he wants to deport him. Let's take a listen.
And then as soon as President Trump comes out today, and President Trump saying it in the nicest way possible about the bill, right? The bill, ba-bing, ba-bang, ba, the guy gets up and starts tweeting the most vicious stuff you could tweet. So all the fanboys defend this. He accused President Trump of basically being a group with those pedophiles on the island. He called for the president to be impeached and J.D. Vance to take his role. As hard as we've worked and all the years that we've worked and this audience has worked, some punk is going to sit there and go, he should be impeached. And hey, as sure as the turning of the earth, if those progressives rub up on him and say, hey, they're never going to buy the Teslas, we're going to buy the Teslas, they rub up on him, he'll write a $500 million check for Hakeem Jeffries. He'll be across the thing looking to impeach President Trump, looking to help steal the 28 election, looking to imprison President Trump. So here's my point. Let's get ahead of it. And shipping 13 million out of here. Let me change that. 13 million and one, because Elon Musk is illegal and he's got to go too. Okay, you're going to ship these other people home. Let's start with the South Africans. Okay, and I got a couple other could go too, but he's illegal. Deport immediately. We all want to cut federal spending. His promise and commitment to the president of cutting $1 trillion in federal spending was something he stuck to the end until we found out it was all a fraud. I mean, this is what caused the physical altercation you had in the West Wing right outside the Oval Office between the Secretary of Treasury, Scott Bessent, who's a good friend of mine and a very even-handed guy. He and Elon got into a physical altercation. And that's because, number one, people felt that day that Elon might have been on drugs. And number two, Scott called him a fraud to his face and said, look, we're in the middle of a terrible budget fight. You committed to a $2 trillion, then you committed to $1 trillion. Now you're talking about $160 billion. We don't see where you got anything.
All right, so, I mean, there's so much to say there. We were joking. Like, what exactly do you need to do to piss off a guy like Scott Bessent to, you know, a buttoned-up Wall Street financier who literally lives in a pink house? What do you have to do to get him to punch you? I mean, listen, if you're a billionaire, I'd be living in a nice, beautiful house, too.
First punch Scott Bessent has ever thrown in his life.
It's certainly
Like,
possible.
He hates your guts.
So
apparently that was pretty common sentiment within the Trump administration.
Very common sentiment.
Yeah.
I mean, look, let's go to the next one, please, shall we? We have Elon's response here to Steve Bannon. Bannon is a criminal who oozes evil from his face like a disease. He's a communist retard. He's a peak retard, as he continues to say over and over
Also
again.
has criminal in there just to mix
criminal
things up.
peak retard.
Which actually is just factually true.
I mean, yeah, I guess you're technically correct. Wait, was he granted clemency or pardon? I forget. So I don't know. Whatever he is in the eyes of the law. What we do know is this is probably no coming back with his relationship with Donald Trump. And I would say at least a certain sect of MAGA. Trump says Elon Musk will face, quote, very serious consequences if he funds Democratic candidates. You know, I don't think that is going to happen just because of how far Elon has gone. But I was joking with several friends that
you don't think he'll fund Democratic candidates?
No, but Elon is the perfect prey for people who you and I know very well, Crystal, the no labels crowd.
Oh, yeah.
Elon, I mean, if you think about it, Elon is socially liberal, fiscally conservative. He is filthy rich, and he cares a lot about the debt. He has, or at least pretends to care a lot about the debt. And he's got shitloads of money, and he's got private business interests. All of those things confluence in the Bipartisan Policy Project or the No Label Center. He's tweeting about a third party, right? I mean, this is catnip.
Some of those abundance folks are going to eat them up.
This is catnip for a certain type of Silicon Valley billionaire. The amount of pollsters who are gonna charge him 10 times the normal rate to prove his bullshit and his consultants and all of that. I mean, the fallout in some ways I find very vindicating because it's been obvious that Elon has been a huge problem for the Trump administration. But I mean, really what I have to say is looking at the Trump administration is Elon has made them look like fools. And the reason I say that is think about the amount of political capital that they went to bat for Elon Musk in the first 90 days of the Trump administration. And particularly, let's say, with the first 45 days. The central story of the United States of America was Doge, was waste, fraud, and abuse. Now, I certainly still think that there is a popular sentiment behind Doge and the idea of, like, government corruption and all that. But by about 45 days or so, we have a story. This is bullshit, right? This is just people who are gallivanting around, getting access to systems, chaos, 10-day, what did you do today, emails. The White House went to extraordinary lengths to defend Elon. I mean, they had a car dealership marketing thing on the White House lawn. That's as good as it gets for any company.
It's crazy.
He bought a Tesla on the south,
I still can't believe
on the south lawn of the White House. I mean, that's insane, okay? I mean, that's nuts. They said they're going to charge people with domestic terrorism for burning down. Now, listen, you know, maybe if make sure it applies to everybody, but they were talking about Tesla specifically, right? Yeah. I mean, they brought the full force of the White House and the United States federal government basically to bear to defend this man's reputation. They stretched the law, special government employee, Doge. I mean, how many cases before the United States Supreme Court over Doge? And then to have a falling out like this is just so immensely embarrassing because it always comes back to the original stories of the first Trump administration where somebody would leave and then they would attack Trump. And look, at Trump and MAGA and all of them would always attack them. But, you know, it always comes back to judgment. It's like, yeah, but why did you hire him in the first place? Right? So it's like John Bolton. You'd be like, John Bolton is a warmonger. Like, yeah, but why did you hire him? What were you doing?
Yeah.
Right? So like that's about bad judgment. And so really, I mean, I just think they look incredibly foolish. Like you have all these statements from the White House, from Donald Trump. I mean, all of the bromance pictures, so many of the, the Elon's kid in the Oval Office, all this craziness. And so for them then to turn around and be like, I'm taking, the bigger hand, it's like, you accepted, his ketamine use and his erratic behavior and all the political problems that he caused initially. You basically whitewashed so many of the corruption allegations, I mean, which were obvious and true, going on at the time. And it's only now that he like attacks you personally, that you're willing to turn on it. I mean, in a certain sense, I don't think it's a bad thing. I mean, because really what you have watched is a demonstration of, I think, a lot of the tech bro alliance with MAGA, because a lot of them, I really believe they thought Washington was almost even more corrupt than it is. And they're like, we can just buy our way in.
Yeah.
And they didn't realize that actually there's courts and Congress and like all this other stuff. And, you actually have to align with democratic institutions. And I do feel like Elon's real breaking point is he didn't understand that you actually can't just buy everything that you want. I mean, we have the NASA administrator who got lumered, which is hilarious. What did he do? He donated to some Democratic politician.
Yeah, which they
like
know,
one
which
time,
they know
which he
about.
told Trump. And only recently they were like, oh, actually, no, that's a huge problem. I can only assume that the NASA guy was probably going to be highly preferential to SpaceX. Of
course.
But then you also have, the standoff around the debt. I'm not going to speculate around Elon's intentions with, I mean, he probably does care about the debt in a very like Millet libertarian sense. It's always kind of been his politics. But really what I think it is that the GOP was not listening to him. And I think the reason is it's not just they were listening to Trump. Guys, this is Washington. There are constituents. Elon is like, we need to cut the debt. The New York congressman is like, I will not vote for this bill unless every millionaire in my district gets a SALT deduction. That's called democratic politics. Everyone's like, oh, this bill is full of pork. Yeah, that's how it works. Like, part of the thing that he's finding out and interacting with are like actual politicians who are responsible to people. And I think that is something that he is, I think he's irreconcilable now truly to the political system. But bigger story is just the Trump administration, the Republican Party, made a huge mistake, I think, by becoming so like wholly tied to Elon Musk and his erratic behavior, his business interests, his various problems. And in particular, what they did wrong was not, accepting somebody's money is like, fine, okay, everybody does it. But they kind of fused themselves both to Elon's benefit, to his identity, and to his company. That was devastating. Already we can talk about the company. We can look at the stock price, to Elon and all that. But to the Republican Party, you basically took somebody who's an erratic person, not even an American, originally a natural-born American citizen, who has all kinds of conflicts of interest, not a politician by any means or any right, and you subsumed him into your identity and you took all of the political hit. And I would say, if you really look at it, the two prongs that have hit the Trump administration the hardest, it has been Doge and it has also been the tariffs. And obviously we'll talk about tariffs a little bit later, but those two combined as a 1-2 punch, I think it's been devastating, to a lot of their political prospects, even now in the future. So anyway, I don't think these are particularly original thoughts, but I just think it was a huge mistake from the very beginning. Everybody could see it coming from a mile away, that eventually something, would tear between. If you look at Elon's entire history, I hate to say, but he brought himself into our world, right? Like every relationship he's in is a fucking mess.
Yeah.
You guys should read. I really encourage people to read Ashley Vance's biography of Elon. Like he had a longtime secretary who had the gall to ask him for a raise because she's like, hey, I do a lot of work around here. And he just fired her. And she's like, it's like, what? It's like every business partner, every major investor. He was forced out of, everyone forgets this, at PayPal. They were like, Elon, we can't deal with him. And they forced him out as the CEO overnight. He's always been like this, disagreeable and kind of crazy. So this was an eventual outcome. I do think, though, that the damage to the Doge project that has done to the White House is something that's going to be very difficult for them because that was the initial spark of a lot of the original political protests against Trump. The tariffs, I think, hit everybody, devastated a lot of political opinion. And now you have all the elements of a bad Trump story, which is infighting between two principal actors, Everybody loves juicy drama. We've got the Epstein stuff, which we'll get to in a little bit, which is just, clownish in terms of the way the Trump administration is handling it. And so, yeah, I mean, just broadly, I think it's bad. But it is a great lesson, I think, as to why these people should not actually be all that intertwined in our democratic system. Like, at the end of the day, yes, you can hate Donald Trump. He is a talented politician. JD and all these people, they got themselves elected. Like, they know what they're doing to a certain extent. Even Schumer, okay, yes, I'll even say that they're better than these interlopers. And so, in a sense, I am a little bit happy just to see some of that come in. And because, the arrogance was unbelievable in November. I have not told this story publicly. I will say it now. I knew somebody who was very involved with Doge, and they said, we're just so excited because there's never been a serious effort to cut spending in Washington. I literally laughed at them, and I was like, do you know who Paul Ryan is? I was just like, do you know how to read a fucking book? Like, no offense, but do you even know what you're talking about?
Right.
And they thought I was the crazy one.
Right.
And I was like, you got a lot coming to you, my friend. In fact, there's a viral clip somebody sent me of me talking specifically about Doge on the Lex Friedman podcast in November, where I was like, yeah, I'm not so sure about this. I was like, Congress exists. This is not how Washington works. This, and this. I was like, you're going to run up against a bureaucracy. And it's effectively what has happened. And now Elon, through his own personal machinations, has crashed out dramatically.
Yeah.
And Trump doesn't even want to take his phone calls. So,
Yeah, Trump says that he's not really interested in talking to him. He says he thinks that Elon is depressed and heartbroken.
Probably
is
true.
What he has is.
I mean, Elon is diagnosed depressed, right? Because of his ketamine.
I think he's bipolar, isn't he? He's a mess. He's a mess. And I mean, yes, he's like personally, obviously, disaster. Could show him in the White House with a black eye that you don't even bother to cover. Listen, I still have 2 black eyes, and I can give you some makeup tips. You don't have to show up with that all hanging out, tweaking out. I mean, it's insane. But he put in more than $250 million into Trump's campaign, and he was going to get something significant for that, and he did. And so even as, you have to hold 2 thoughts in your head. Even as Doge was a total and complete failure on the cutting spending and, making the government more efficient front. In fact, it did the opposite of both of those things. Elon got things out of it and did have a huge impact in terms of destroying some of these agencies. His investigations got dropped. The latest story says he installed Starlink over the objections of some of the White House folks so that he could pull whatever data he wanted out. So I'm not even sure. I mean, I still have a lot of questions about what it is that he got out of Doge, including possibly tons of data to feed into his own AI in order to try to win the AI race versus his rival, Sam Altman. That was Sagar, another one of the falling out points. Yeah. I think that as far as we know publicly, the 2 big things were the NASA administrator getting pulled, which was the final straw, which that's when Elon just goes nuclear and starts accusing Trump of being a pedo and all that sort of fun stuff. And claims, by the way, comes out and says, you won the election because of me, which again is an extraordinary assertion. Just yeah, I bought the election. That's what he's saying. The world's richest man.
I just don't think it's true, period, at all. I think, his money was helpful, but the Trump administration was hard up for money? Come on, get out of here. This is $1 billion election. What, you think the Club for Growth or any of those other people aren't going to be able to fund and get out the vote operation? If anything, his get out the vote operation was shitty by all accounts for all the people.
We did cover that.
Yeah, we covered it at the time. I mean, I talked to people who were involved. They said this is a shit show and it's a mess. I mean, Donald Trump won the election because of Donald Trump and because of Kamala Harris. Elon and all that, I mean, was it helpful at a very high level narrative? To have Twitter bought? Yeah, I mean, probably.
Twitter, the Twitter piece, I think, was very important.
But I wouldn't call it election swinging. It was more.
It's so hard to say, though.
Nobody really knows.
I mean, when you think about the vibe shift and whatever, that and having all the tech guys all in on it, and I didn't mean to they were all in, and also I'm specifically talking about the All In podcast.
Who, by the way, are silent and are cowards. And I say this as a person who considers David Sachs as a friend. Chamath, David, Jason, speak up. You guys wanted this.
Yeah.
Okay? I've met you all before.
How's it going, guys?
You guys wanted to be in politics. You have to show up. You know, yes, I've been on parental leave, but you guys don't have an excuse. You have to show up and you have to talk about all the shit, even the bad stuff, even when it makes you look bad. So you wanted this, okay? You wanted to be major political commentators. Show the fuck up. Where are you? Your silence is deafening.
But you know,
only David gets an excuse because he works in the government. Everybody else, speak up. Chamath, where are you, bro? Chamath is literally tweeting about his dick size, and he doesn't have anything to say about Elon. All right? So I'm just saying.
Commentary.
All right? Yeah, he called himself an anaconda. Who, by the way, if you have $1 billion, what a fucking loser. I'll talk about this.
Also, if you are saying things like that publicly, it really makes me question. Just saying.
Yeah.
So there's all of that. I mean, I think, so this gets to who has the power now in this dynamic, who's going to quote unquote win. And look, obviously Trump is president of the United States. He's a million times more charismatic than Elon. The people around him, you know, I mean, they have like a love-hate relationship with him, but he inspires respect. Elon inspires like disgust and hatred, apparently, over time as people spend time around him. And so obviously Trump has more cards to play. I will say, though, I am surprised at how meekly Trump has responded. Like it has been very, rhetorically, it has been very meek. Now, he's threatening all of Elon's contracts. Elon tweeted this out, though, which I think is also noteworthy. He said, whatever happens, we've got the spaceships and they do not, which, you know, he's pointing to the fact that NASA and the space program really is kind of fucked without SpaceX because, and this is a trend that started, Barack Obama is really the one that pushed towards SpaceX and towards privatizing so much of the space program. I would say this is case in point of why it's so devastating to rely on like a single oligarch or a handful of oligarchs for things that are essential government capacity. And so he's holding that over Trump's head. And I mean, who knows what sort of data he has. There may be pieces that we aren't aware of, cards that Elon can play. The other two parts that are obvious are Starlink is really critical for, you know, this critical communications infrastructure that Elon has control over. And the other one is Twitter. Twitter has become the like backbone of the conservative movement and conservative discourse. I mean, it really has become extremely central. And so the fact he has control over that is another, you know, arrow in his quiver and could be part of why Trump is not going nuclear in the way that Elon has. I mean, again, think about it. Elon said, your tariffs suck and they're going to cause a recession. You're a pedo. You did not even win the election. I won it for you. And all Trump has to say is like, oh, I'm sorry. He's so heartbroken.
See, I could read it that way. I also could read it as like, it's humiliating. You know, I mean, one of my best friends or most politically aligned person was like openly shitting on me. You'd just be like, yeah, I mean,
but
you want to try and
Trump isn't one to be humiliated. Like, this man is shameless.
I don't know.
He's not one to be humiliated.
I truly have no idea what goes on into it. I do think, look, this was brewing at a meta level inside of the White House now for some time. Can we go ahead and put B5, please, up on the screen? People have predicted some grand, you know, reconciliation between the two. I just wish him well. Likewise, Elon says, after apparently trying to get Elon on the phone multiple times and Trump on the phone multiple times, and Trump has refused to take his call. I mean, the relationship already lasted so much longer than I thought that I just don't really even want to like speculate. I think really what's been embarrassing is the fact that MAGA, Cat Turd, and all these other people caped for Elon so hard, only to then have to turn on him at this point. It makes you look very foolish. I mean, the point is with Elon is like, Elon is, I mean, Elon was always kind of this independent sphere, very obviously trying to use his influence both to benefit himself, but also like a broader technology aligned thing. And let's be honest, it is complicated. Like between Elon and Sam Altman, like I'm with Elon on that one, right? I mean, I'm not pro Sam Altman on some open AI insane takeover. And broadly with the project, what we really see here is this is a classic Trumpian style story where when someone, and actually a right-wing story, when somebody, no matter who they are and all their foibles, when they're with you, they go all in. You're a god, and we're buying Teslas and cyber trucks, and then when they turn against you, it's like, I
Deport
hardly
him.
knew the guy. Let's
Yeah.
deport him. And it's like, how about maybe it's like, yeah, thank you for supporting us. You know, we're fine without you. It's really nice for you to be here with us, but you know, it's like we have an independent project, and some of the smart ones have always seen that. You know, that's why I've always respected Steve Bannon. There's been some smarter ones out there as well who are always like, yeah, you know, this is the problem. We can see this coming from a mile away, but you know, there are a number of just like impressionable kind of right-wing guys, I would say, who really got taken in by a lot of this project, and I think they look really.
The cult
and
of
that goes all the way
Elon.
up to the top.
Yeah, I mean, that's like,
Yeah.
I think Trump fell into this idea, oh, he's such a genius and he's a great man. Like, I think he got pulled into some of that as well, which is part of why he let him go as far as he did. I mean, this stuff was unhinged, like being on the stage with a chainsaw, gleefully firing people, destroying all of these agencies, you know, in wild violation of the law. There's all this reporting now that, you know, Susie Wiles and these people are like, what are you doing? Like, they did not know in advance what he was doing, and probably still don't know exactly what's going on. And that is one other thing that he's got, is these Doge kids are still, who are more loyal to him, are still populating.
Although they're afraid of being Doge.
These
I think it should be
agencies.
Doge at this point. I mean,
They
it's
should
been
be.
such a failure.
Of course.
It's
Yes.
been humiliating.
Yeah, they absolutely should be out of it. They had no business being in there in the first place. So, you know, the last thing I'll say is there was, we started with Trump saying, oh, there'll be serious consequences if Elon starts funding Democrats. You know, I think first of all, no Democrat should be taking this guy's money. Like, why? Did you see how this went for Republicans? Do you think this went well for them? Like, just even on a basic tactical, practical level, you think this went well? Second of all, if you're going to be a real party that does anything real, you have to be oppositional to these oligarchs. You have to be oppositional to Elon. And so I think it will be a badge of shame for any Democrat who takes money from Elon Musk. And I think the base will be thoroughly disgusted with that. Because to your point, Sagar, I mean, he did make himself such a toxic, horrifying, and galvanizing figure in the early days of the Trump administration with his Roman salute and all the rest. And so the Democratic is not going to forget that. And so if you're a Democratic politician who thinks you're going to take some money from Elon and nobody's going to have anything to say about it, I think you are dead wrong on that front.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.
Let's go on to Jeffrey Epstein, and there's been some, I mean, the way the Trump administration has handled this from day one has been clownish. You know, we had the original release of the Epstein files to a bunch of influencers, even though there was no new information in there. And in fact, there was publicly available information that was redacted in the so-called Epstein files. The release of that was certainly a botched one. But more recently, the appearance of Kash Patel, the FBI director, on Joe Rogan's podcast has just been nothing short of insane, because Kash Patel, now that he is the FBI director, is directly contradicting many of the things that he himself said only just 2 years ago about the circumstances of the Jeffrey Epstein case. This surrounds multiple things, okay? So number one starts with Jeffrey Epstein himself and the so-called suicide, where we were told a couple of things. We were told the camera was off. We were told as well that there's reams of information and hours of footage that was seized by the FBI in the initial raid of the Epstein mansion that has been held by the FBI, the infamous Black Book, and so many of this other stuff the FBI had and had not yet been released to the public. And yet now we are told by Kash Patel a couple of things. They say that the camera allegedly was on this whole time. By the way, we were not told that. That's actually the opposite of the original story for the way this so-called suicide went down. We're told by the top levels of the FBI that actually Epstein did kill himself after all. They're 100% certain. They can't release the whole file to us because we're not allowed to know as the public. And we're also not going to see any of the footage that was seized by the FBI because, quote, they don't want to re-victimize women. So let's take a listen to 2023 Kash Patel and today's Kash Patel.
Why is the FBI protecting the greatest pederast, the largest scale pederast in human history?
Simple, because of who's on that list. You don't think that Bill Gates is lobbying Congress night and day to prevent the disclosure of that list? And why is it that the Senate, you know, and good for Senator Blackburn to try to get it out, but then Dick Durbin comes over the top and says, no, we're not going to release the names. I don't care about the list itself, but if release the names, right?
And I've said it, Dan Bongino said it, we've reviewed all the information and the American public is going to get as much as we can release. He killed himself. Do you think, let's play out the logical conclusion of this. Do you think that myself, Bongino, and others would participate in hiding information about Epstein's grotesque activities? Or do you think we would also participate in not prosecuting people we had evidence to prosecute people on? Where's the videotape of an Epstein Island of X, Y, and Z committing these frauds? Why haven't you given it to us? Do you really think I wouldn't give that to you if it existed?
No. It's like, I think you would participate in a cover-up if you're the top level of the FBI and subject to a massive blackmail machine at the top of an international intelligence apparatus? Yeah, I do think that. And in fact, because all of history vindicates that, looking at literally the history of the FBI. But broadly, I mean, we can just compare all of the same things that they said to what they're now saying. I mean, the craziest thing he's saying is that we were not going to re-victimize women. And I would understand if we were saying that in 06. Now we have what? We have technology to be able to, I mean, listen, murder and other images which are ghastly and devastating are released to the public all the time. They redact images, you know, for example, of like actual victims, but very often, especially in fact in cases like this, they will make sure to protect the child, underage women, or the victim's identity while at the same time releasing footage of the perpetrators. Remember, we still to this date do not have an accurate accounting of the island, of the files, and everything that went on inside of that mansion, so-called hidden cameras. And I know all of this, quote, sounds crazy, but like this is documented fact at this point. So here we have Kash Patel saying he won't re-victimize women, but most importantly, saying that the cameras were on in the Epstein prison. Again, that is a direct lie than told previously by the Bureau of Prisons and by the Trump administration the initial time around itself.
Right.
Let's take a listen.
What about the video from the island?
Oh, sorry. So you're talking about two different things.
Yes. Sorry.
So again, we're going to give you everything we can, and people have to remember, we're not going to re-victimize women. We're not going to put that shit back out there. It's not happening, because then he wins. Not doing it. You want to hate me for it? Fine. Again, logical play out. If there was a video of some guy or gal committing felonies on an island, and I'm in charge, don't you think you'd see it?
If you have access to it.
If I have it, period.
Right.
If I have it.
So,
where else would it be?
right, if you have it.
Right.
But you can't say that you have it
No, we're giving you everything we have.
so far.
Everything we have so far is
Have
the
you guys
universe.
gone over all the video that's available?
Yeah, that's what I'm telling you. That's what takes so much damn time. But the problem is there's been like 15 years of people coming in and creating fictions about this that doesn't exist. Where's the videotape of an Epstein Island of X, Y, and Z committing these frauds? Why haven't you given it to us? Do you really think I wouldn't give that to you if it existed? I'm working my ass off along with the leadership at the Bureau and DOJ to get you what we're allowed to give you. And you're going to get the video of the cell, and you're going to see for yourself. And we will never be able to convince everyone.
What? You know, it's like, don't you think I would give that to you? No, actually,
And he
because
says,
you're
we're
not.
gonna get the video. We're gonna see for ourselves.
He said the camera was on. That's literally not what we were told. He said the camera was off and the guards were sleeping. And like, oh yeah, okay.
I
for
think
sure.
Pam Bondi in this administration said that, didn't she? There
Well,
was some-
she said that they had been reviewing hours of video. We may even have that. I'm not sure. No, we don't have it today. But she previously had said that we are reviewing thousands of hours of video, and now they're like, well, actually, we can't release any of that video to the public.
And also, there's not the video you want. And
Right.
also, we have definitive proof, even though we didn't before.
Look, there's an easy way to solve all of this. Release it all to the public, okay? You can easily release all of this to the American public. We will make up our minds for ourselves. And you can do that while being sensitive to the victims. I also would honestly like to have a poll and a survey of all the Epstein victims and ask them, hey, is it okay for us to be able to see this while we do all the sensitive work of making sure we redact you and privately and keep your privacy? I guarantee you these people would be willing to have it out in the public because they were horribly victimized and they want their, the people who took advantage of them to be held accountable to the public. And this also is where the Elon, tie-in comes, where Elon claimed that it was, that Trump himself was implicated in the Epstein files, and that's part of the reason why that Trump has not released them yet to date. So pretty extraordinary accusation.
And before we play what Trump has, because
Yeah.
every time Trump gets asked about this, he gets real squirrely.
Right.
going back to his first administration when he got asked about Ghislaine Maxwell,
I was
he
going to
says,
say the infamous
I wish her well. I wish her well.
well.
Epstein said that Trump was his bestie for 10 years. Whether that is fully accurate or not, we know they were friends. We have video and pictures of them together. We know Trump was on the plane 7 times according to the flight logs. We know Trump in an interview was like, yeah, he likes him young. So like 100% Trump is quote unquote in the Epstein files. You know, what all that entails is another matter. But yeah, I mean, this is why it's always been so funny. The right had a deep interest in this. I think there's good reason to have a deep interest in it, especially in particular how it ties into all of these wealthy and powerful people and potential, you know, Israeli Mossad activities as well.
No, we haven't even touched on that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the other reason why, very likely, the government doesn't want to release everything that's available, because then it will be abundantly clear that he, you know, was an intelligence asset, maybe potentially for the lawyers, whatever. But you've got those two things. You've got this very pro-Israel administration. You have a guy who spent years entangled with this man, and you think you're going to get all the goods on him, even though repeatedly when Trump gets asked about this, he dodges. And so let's go ahead and play this video of him getting asked on Fox News. And this was crazy too. So Fox News, in the run-up to the election, they asked him, like, what about UFOs? What about JFK? And he's like, yes, release it. Yes, release it. And they're like, what about Epstein? And he's like, yeah, well... And they edited it originally to cut out all the rest of the, like, well, nah, I probably actually won't do that, and there's problems, et cetera, to make it sound like he just was like, yes, we're going to release it. Let's go ahead and take a listen to the unedited version of what he actually said in that Fox News interview.
Would you declassify the 9/11 files?
Yeah.
Would you declassify JFK files?
Yeah.
Would you,
I did a lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you know, you don't know. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there, because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. But I think I would.
So a lot different than just an affirmative yes. And he always, every time he gets asked about it, it's something similar of like, oh, well, I'm worried about their privacy and people are involved, et cetera. Yeah, people are involved.
I mean, look, no matter who is president, just at this point, you know, we all genuinely do deserve to know. I mean, I think I actually genuinely believe that it's not Trump which is holding all of this up. I think it's Israel. I think it's Mossad. I think it's very obvious considering the original comments by Alex Acosta and by the initial prosecutors, quote, intelligence was involved. I mean, this is a direct quote. You can go and read it for yourself if you want to, back from 2019. I think that's the only reason that we don't know. In a sense, we don't even, you know, like without the files, we know everything that we need to know. Israeli agent, we're gathering intelligence on all of the highest levels of American society. For what purpose? You can only guess. And that's another thing. People are like, well, how did they use this information? I don't think people understand how intelligence gathering works. The whole point is that you gather it so that you may have to use it in the future, in case you need to. Ehud Barak, the prime minister of Israel, literally spending multiple nights a week at his mansion, okay? These are documented facts. Like using his money to invest with all of the world's billionaires, from Peter Thiel, which has been more recently revealed, to Leon Black at the Apollo. I'm not even worried about people suing me. This is fact. Like Leon Black literally had to resign from his company. One of the most private or one of the most powerful billionaires in the world had to resign from his company because of his, what was it, $200 million payment via his private jet LLC that was being paid to Jeffrey Epstein. Over 150 million. Yeah, definitely for jet maintenance. I'm sure that's what it was all about. Bill Gates and the Nobel Prize. I mean, this is obvious.
Yeah,
like,
and the Peter Thiel piece is the new
it's a brand new.
He had a lot of money in.
That he had a bunch of money, I think, in one of his funds. It's apparently now yielding incredible results to the Jeffrey Epstein estate. The point is just that the money was a tool. Obviously, also, yeah, Leslie Wexner, who I think is still alive to this day, who just miraculously gifted him all this money for no apparent reason or any of that whatsoever. This is obvious. And, like, I know it sounds like Eyes Wide Shut, but it's all real. Like, this is documented. It exists. You know, President or Bill Clinton on the plane multiple times. RFK Jr. by his own admission on the plane a couple of times. I mean, that's the part I don't get either. When you're filthy rich, why are we accepting gifts like this from, you know, questionable people? When you have the money, just fly yourself. I don't get it.
Yeah.
You know? I just see YouTube hosts. I don't want to accept free
always
flights.
Wanted to ignore his ties and how closely linked he was with Epstein and all the documentary evidence. and then think that he was going to be the one that finally, you know, between how pro-Israel he is and his own linkages. Like, I never thought we were going to see any of this. And it's just wild to see Cash out there like, well, you know, it's just not there. And we've determined conclusively he definitely killed himself. But we can't, you know, we're not going to show you. And now the cameras are on, whatever. It's a wild situation. The last piece here is Elon has now deleted his posts accusing Trump of being in the Epstein files. And there were some other things that he had posted where he was saying, I will fully apologize to Trump once he fully releases the Epstein files. I think he also deleted those ones too, although double check me on that. I'm not 100% sure. But, you know, I mean, I don't even understand this behavior. Like, once it's out there, it's out there. It's not like anyone's going to forget that he posted this. It's this sort of like childlike, like, oh, if I delete it now, I can take it back, which you can't really take that back. But I don't know what's going on with Elon's also out tweeting a bunch about what's going on in LA in a way that's like very favorable for Trump and for MAGA and, you know, supporting the National Guard being brought in or whatever. So I don't know if he's trying to mend fences. I don't know if that's possible at this point because I don't think you can really come back fully from what has been said and done at this point. But it is interesting to me as well that, we'll talk about this in the Theo Von segment. Apparently Trump advised J.D. Vance to be diplomatic when it comes to Elon.
I found that very odd.
Very weird. I mean, not the way that Trump typically behaves. Like, normally, once you cross him, that's it. Scorched earth, right? I expected him to have some story equivalent to remember the whole story he'd tell about, like, DeSantis coming, tears in his eyes.
Tears in his eyes.
Begging me. I thought we'd have something like that and some, like, elaborate display of humiliation. He's been pretty low-key. Maybe it's because he does hold all the power, you know, and can punish him in all of these various ways. But it's just interesting to me how differently he's responded than what you would normally expect from Trump, where Elon has gone fully nuclear and Trump has been, like, kind of conciliatory, honestly.
Yeah, I agree. There's some weird stuff that is going on. All right, should we talk about Kilmar?
Yeah.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent.
All right, we've alluded to this a number of times in the show. Let's go ahead and break down the news for you. Kilmar Abrego Garcia is coming back to the U.S. If he's not here already, let's go ahead and put this up on the screen from Axios. Wrongly deported Kilmar Abrego Garcia returning to the U.S. to face criminal charges. So he's on his way back, according to a newly unsealed indictment. His deportation, they say, to El Salvador has been a flashpoint, you might say, in President Trump's immigration agenda. That indictment alleges that Abrego Garcia, who lives in Maryland, made more than 100 trips transporting undocumented immigrants between Texas and Maryland, among other states. According to Attorney General Pam Bondi, citing co-conspirators' testimony, Abrego Garcia also allegedly abused undocumented immigrant women and solicited nude photographs and videos from a minor. Let's go ahead and put this indictment up on the screen. I did read through it. You know, we'll see what evidence they proffer, but here USA Today says Attorney General says Kilmar Abrego was part of international smuggling ring. This goes back to, there was some footage that was released of him where he was stopped while he was driving, and he had a number of people in the car. It was a vehicle that had been modified to allow more people to be there. He wasn't apprehended or anything at the time, but they considered it sort of fishy because the people did not seem to have luggage with them. I believe he said that he was bringing them to a job or something like that. Right. So that's sort of the context of what the indictment centers around. We do know that there was one prosecutor who was meant to be involved with this, put D4 up on the screen, who resigned over the decision to pursue this indictment. Led to the abrupt departure of Ben Schrader, high-ranking federal prosecutor in Tennessee. Schrader's resignation was prompted by concerns the case was being pursued for political reasons, according to sources. I think this was NBC News that reported this out, but I can't remember specifically. So anyway, we'll see what happens with the charges. We'll see whether they have sufficient evidence to actually, you know, find him guilty of these alleged crimes. But obviously, the fact that they felt, after they said, absolutely no way is this man coming back, that they felt enough pressure to bring him home, both from the public and from the court system, is quite extraordinary. And so now he will go through the court system.